My name is Dr. Story. I've been a chiropractor for over 24 years. I'm going to give you some realistic advice based on my experience. In this video, I'm going to give you the secrets and ways I analyze how I adjust the carpal bones of the wrist. If you have carpal tunnel syndrome, de Quervain's disease, if you have tendon problems, joint pain when you do push-ups, or pain when you move your wrist, this video should explain how a good chiropractor can analyze the carpal bones. I hope you enjoy it, and before you do, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification, share this on social media. I greatly appreciate it, and let's get into the video right now. All right, so a quick anatomy lesson. The first thing is there are 15 bones between here and here. So that's kind of amazing when you think about it. There are two bones here. This is the radial bone, and this is the ulnar bone. Then you have 8 carpal bones, which I'll name in just a moment. And then you have the metacarpals, and of course there's 5. So 2 plus 8 plus 5 between here and here is 15. So there's a lot of joints that can go wrong. So let's first discuss the carpal bones. There's the scaphoid bone, which is right here, which is the most commonly fractured bone. And also when people fall down and hurt themselves, this is a bone you want to make sure is not fractured, because the bone can actually die because of lack of blood flow. The middle bone right here is called the lunate. And the reason the lunate is important is because that's the most commonly misaligned bone for carpal tunnel syndrome. The triquetral bone, which is right here next to this bump on the outside of the wrist, that bone very often cyclists get problems with, where they get ulnar nerve problems. On the back side, the front side right here, there's the pisiform bone, which can also fracture when you fall. Then you have near the thumb, which is the most commonly arthritic part of the wrist, right in here. That's the trapezium, then the trapezoid bone, then the capitate bone, which is the largest bone of the carpals, and that bone can actually fracture as well and be a role in carpal tunnel syndrome. And then you have the hamate bone right here. So a general screen of how to know what the misalignments are is, what I will do first is flex the patient's wrist like this and ask them if they have pain. If they have pain, usually that signifies that they have misalignment and joint damage between the radial bone and the scaphoid and lunate. If I have the patient bend their wrist backwards like this and they have pain, that's usually a misalignment between the scaphoid and lunate and the capitate and the other bones right here, the trapezium and trapezoid. So how I analyze for misalignment is, that's the screening test. But what I'll do is I'll grab one bone and then grab the other and then shift back and forth to see how much movement or how much joint play is in the wrist. So right now I'm just doing the scaphoid. Then I will grab the lunate and the radius and go back and forth and check for misalignment there. And I will do that with all the carpal bones. So when I'm doing this, what I'm looking for is a little bit of movement, and then at the end of that movement, at the end, there's a little bit of give. That's what I'm actually feeling for. This is not something you can see on an x-ray. So I'm just doing that right here and looking for those misalignments. Very often the misalignments will also become painful. So the most common adjustments are that if a person has pain when they flex forward, like I said, that's usually joint damage between the radius and the scaphoid and the lunate. So what I do is I take my finger, the palmar side of my finger, and place it underneath, right there where the scaphoid is, and then I will use my thumbs, using both thumbs like this, to push the radius in that direction. So what I'm doing is I'm essentially curling the scaphoid bone and the lunate with my fingers and stabilizing with my thumb. My thumb is pushing in this direction, that direction right there. So the adjustment simply looks like that. Okay? There it was. Now, if the patient has pain When they go backwards, like I said, that's more of a mid-carpal misalignment, and that's a little bit more difficult to adjust. What I will do is I will take my hand and place it around, not the ulna and the radius, but I will place it between the triquetrum and the scaphoid and squeeze that together. You can see on the undersurface here, my fingers, I am going to squeeze those proximal carpals there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to flex the wrist about 15 degrees forward, down like this here. And then I will take my other hand and go right like this. Now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a shearing force like that. Now the thing that, it looks easy on YouTube, but actually what you're doing is I'm going to be using my knuckle right there to decide where I'm going to be doing this on the mid-carpal area. So if I want to focus on the capitate, for example right there, I'm going to place my knuckle right on the capitate, and when I do the shearing force like this on the wrist, I will get most of the pressure on the capitate. If I want to go to the trapezium or trapezoid, I will simply shift my knuckle over to that area to move the joints in that direction. And that is how I analyze and adjust the carpal bones.